Hi teachers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jessica Tobin and I am the blogger and product creator behind Elementary Nest. I have been coming to you weekly for a couple weeks now, and today we are back with another video, and we are going to be talking about how to scaffold your writing lessons. This video I'm going to talk about two sections. I'm going to separate it into two sections. The first section we're going to talk about kind of method of scaffolding and why we scaffold. And the second, we're going to typically talk about how to do it in a writing lesson or a mini lesson. So first we're going to dive into an overview of scaffolding itself. So we're going to talk about what scaffolding is first. And scaffolding is a way that you teach to help your students understand a bigger overarching topic. So in this case, you are scaffolding writing standards. There are fewer writing standards in the domain than there are for any of the other domains. And it kind of just focuses on 6 big things throughout the year. You've got opinion writing, and this is Common Core, by the way. You've got opinion writing, narrative writing, informative writing. You've got some research pieces in there, and then you have editing and publishing your work. So the main 3 are narrative, opinion, and informative. Now, within those standards, there are a lot of words and action verbs and expectations within one single standard. So these standards are not like your reading standards where it's very straightforward and you can get through that reading standard in maybe a week or 2. These are going to take you multiple weeks because you're going to scaffold it in a way that your students can understand. So what you're doing is you are breaking apart this huge standard into smaller chunks so that you can teach each piece specifically to give your students an opportunity to understand each part that they are expected to do. And we're going to do an example here that is going to help you kind of see what I mean. And I'm going to pull it up actually. Let me pull it up so I can make sure that I don't say anything wrong. So we're looking at opinion writing. Opinion writing W2-1, that's a 2nd grade expectation. And each of these standards have lots of pieces within them. So this would be something like I talked about a couple weeks ago, deconstructing those standards. When you deconstruct the standards, you can really see all of the expectations and power verbs and action verbs within that standard. I will put a link to that freebie. I'll put it here on the screen, and then I'll also put it in the description if you are interested in that deconstruction standard template. Go ahead and look at which standards you need to scaffold, which are going to be specifically today your writing standards. And you can tell that yes, we're doing opinion writing pieces. Instead of just saying, all right, we're going to write about how we feel and support with reasons. We have to way back up and we have to break that into pieces that the students can, or chunks that the students can really understand. So what I like to do is I like to do like themed lessons for each day. And one day might be just introducing opinion writing pieces. You know, teaching them the structure of an opinion writing piece, reading examples of opinion writing pieces. And the next day, we might talk about what an opinion is, how it's different from fact, what a good opinion is, what a weak opinion is. Day 3, that's when you can start getting into the pieces of the standard itself. Introductions, how do you introduce a topic? Day 4 might be supplying reasons. You know, being students on day 2, we're able to give opinions, and then on day 4, they have to learn about how to supply with logical reasons. Day 5 might be all about linking words. Day 6 we might discuss, conclusions, and then anything after that is going to be guided writing pieces with a gradual release. And then once you look at scaffolding and how it relates specifically to these writing standards, we're going to discuss the gradual release. And gradual release is very related to scaffolding when you're teaching, because it is letting your students slowly gain independence in a guided way. So you are helping your students get to that independence, but you're giving them lots of cues, lots of prompts, lots of support so that they can really, really hone in on each piece of these huge writing standards that they have to do. So now we're going to look at a mini lesson as an example for scaffolding. I've just talked about how to look at a standard and kind of pick apart, okay, I'm going to do this on day 1 and this on day 2 and this on day 3. If you are wanting to get more detailed, you can expand those into 2 days or 3 days. And here is a picture of a mini lesson from one of my writing units. And this would be all of the activities that are included in the introduction mini lessons. So as you can see, you're giving your students an opportunity to have practice activities that are not necessarily writing. They're not putting pencil on paper, but they are getting practice with that skill itself. So they might be doing some matching activities, they're doing some visual games, they're doing a lot of partner talk, partner activities and centers, and they're really taking themselves out of, I'm going to sit down and write a formal writing piece, and instead they're kind of looking at, I need to learn more about this skill and how to tackle that skill. So if you chose to do, like what's in the picture, if you chose to do all those activities, that might take you 2 or 3 days, which is why sometimes those writing units do end up taking 3 weeks, because, looking at just the introductions might take you 3 or 4 days. Looking at linking words might take you 2 days. Looking at stating your reasons and supporting that opinion, that might take you 3 or 4 days, depending on how in-depth and how many activities you want to provide your students with. What I would suggest doing is starting with your vocabulary and your structure. So looking at the standard itself, teaching your students, showing them the standard and saying, this is what I have to teach you. These are the expectations that I would love for you to do at the end of this writing unit. Or you can take all those pieces and break them into I can statements if you have younger students. But just giving them in the beginning all the vocabulary that they're going to have to learn, introductions, linking words, opinions, supporting reasons, conclusions, anything that they're going to need to know prior, and then the structure of the writing itself. So modeling is our next step, and this is where you are going to want to ensure that you give your students lots of 5-star writing pieces. You're going to show them the process of how to do that. You're going to show them final pieces when you get towards the end of your units, but you're also going to model the chunks of the writing piece. So if you are teaching them about specifically how to state an opinion, you are going to model ways to state an opinion. You're going to give them sentence stems. You're going to give them examples of, how you can write, I believe blank, and giving them a good example versus, a poor example, where they're trying to really get their opinions and their statements up towards the modeled example that you give them. You're also going to provide guided activities, and this is, like I was saying, in the picture that I showed you, that scaffolded, broken apart chunk of your writing standard. So if you're working, for example, on conclusions, you want to make sure the students have guided practice, doing partner activities, graphic organizers, hands-on materials, learning how to write conclusions before you really expect them to write conclusions, giving them lots of mentor text and sentence stems to take and write on their own. And then after your explicit lessons, after you teach all of the pieces within the standard, then you're going to give a guided piece. And what I mean by that is within each of my units, and I have usually like 3 guided pieces. So we will be doing a full narrative writing piece together. And what that means is I will give them a prompt on the board, And we are going to work through our graphic organizers together. We're going to work through our sentence stems together. I'm going to give the students a chance to, partner talk and brainstorm with a partner. And all of this is going to be guided so that they have 3 or 4 pieces that they're writing in a narrative piece. However, it is a guided activity. And then gradually I will give less instruction. Gradually, I will expect more of them independently until they can write it on their own. So what we hope to achieve with scaffolding is for the students to fully understand what is expected of them within their writing standards. There's lots of pieces within it. They build each year gradually from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade and beyond. So having them really understand what's expected of them year after year. For example, in 3rd grade, you're going to start including dialogue. So students are really understanding what's expected of them so that they can include that every time. And when they have their little rubrics and check marks, they know I have achieved this because these are the things that I know are expected of me. So that is all we have for today's how to scaffold your writing lessons. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I will get to you as soon as I can. I hope that this video has kind of given you an idea of how to teach those harder writing instructional standards in a way that your students can really understand and get familiar and comfortable with them. And I will talk to you next week with more teaching tips. Thank you guys.